Thank you. Let's just try and, whatever. This shit hurts. All right, I want to introduce a good friend of mine and a great El Pasoan and a good human being, Mr. Beto O'Rourke.
Thank you for being here for El Paso,
for being here,
for Ciudad Juárez,
for being here,
for being here. Can I get a, here we go, for being here.
Come on!
The mic's excited too!
We got it?
Yeah!
For being here for this big, beautiful, binational community. At a time that we are under attack, we are told to remain silent. We are standing up, loud and proud to be counted with our fellow Americans as the best example of this country after one of the worst disasters she has ever seen. Les ofrecemos nuestro más sentido pésame a la comunidad del Paso, también a la comunidad de Ciudad Juárez, a las víctimas, a sus familias y a este país en este momento tan importante. While we grieve and think about those families who have suffered something that is unimaginable to so many before Saturday, as we are with them to give them strength and courage and to fortify them in the days ahead, I want us to remember at the end of the day just who we are. Yesterday we were at Del Sol Medical Center meeting with some survivors of the shooting from Saturday. People who are still not yet out of the woods, folks who have survived grievous injuries, shot in the chest, shot in the stomach, hanging on in some cases for dear life. And around them, literally physically present, were their families. We visited the family of Tank from Horizon, Tanque. 20 family members there from all over the community, spending day and night and day and night eating the pizza and the donuts that you all are sending in to Del Sol right now. Giving Tank all of the strength that he could possibly need at this moment of truth for him. And we had a chance to thank the doctors and the surgeons and the nurses and the cleaning staff. The nurses told us as they wheeled these victims into the trauma bay, blood everywhere. They'd wheel one patient out, that cleaning staff would come in like a NASCAR pit crew and clean that bay down so it was clean for the next patient to come in so they could save somebody else's life. Every single one of them in that hospital. And they did the same thing at University Medical Center, doing all that they could for their fellow El Pasoans, for their fellow Juarenses, for their fellow human beings. And they saved their lives. And one of those surgeons, Dr. Smith, said, this is one of those moments that either destroys your faith in humanity or restores your faith in humanity. El Paso chooses to restore our faith in humanity, in one another and in this country. And I could not be more proud. All over this country, we tell our story. This beautiful, safe community, this beautiful community of immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees the world over. A quarter of those with whom we live were born somewhere else. And they chose us. They left their home, their family, their country to start anew here in El Paso, Texas. And their very presence has made us strong has made us successful and has made us one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America. And we don't just preach it, we act on it. When we learned that kids were being torn from the arms of their parents after they had traveled 2,000 miles, fleeing the deadliest places anywhere on planet Earth, to arrive here seeking shelter and safety and refuge, to instead be met by their worst nightmare. That child torn from the breast of his mother, that mother deported back to the very country from which she fled, that child placed in a cage and then sent to a tent camp that they called Tornillo. You showed up, more than 1,000 strong, within 24 hours of receiving the news, making sure that those kids in those tents knew that we were there, and we were going to do everything we could to make sure that they rejoined their families, that we shut that tent city down, and the people of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, we shut that tent city down. When those asylum seekers showed up, penniless, defenseless, scared, strangers in a strange land, you, Annunciation House, Las Americas, Border Network for Human Rights, this community came together, and though we may on paper financially be one of the poorest counties in the United States, we came together in an embarrassment of riches and provided those families not only shelter, but food and clothing and medication, and more importantly than anything else, the love and compassion and empathy of this community. That is El Paso at its best. But we learned that no matter how special we are, no matter how distant we are from the rest of this country, we are still connected. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that all of us, each of us, and together as a country, are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. So though we may be safe, and though we may cherish the fact that we are a community of immigrants, we live in a country that is not safe, that refuses to pass laws to end gun violence in the United States. We live in a country where we have a president who demonizes communities like this one, who vilifies immigrants, who says that those from Mexico are rapists and criminals, and warns of invasions and infestations. And so no matter how special we are, we cannot separate ourselves from the rest of this country. And at one point or another, and for us it was on Saturday, that violence and that intolerance and that inaction in the face of violence and intolerance will find us. And it did. And it took the lives of our fellow El Pasoans and Juarezes. So here is my message to you and to this country at this moment. Though we bore the brunt of this hatred and this racism and this intolerance and this violence, I believe that this community also holds the answer, not just for El Paso, but for a country that has never been more divided or more highly polarized. The way that we welcome one another and see our differences not as disqualifying or dangerous, but as the very source of our strength, as the foundation of our success, that needs to be the example for the United States of America today. And so I ask you to make sure that those murders, that act of terror, not define this community or this country in this moment. Instead, it is the way that you have chosen to come together right now under this beautiful sky, in this beautiful community, with these beautiful people, to transcend that hatred and that violence and to show America a better path. El Paso, I am proud of you. El Paso, I love you. El Paso, we are bigger and better and greater than this. Nos vemos y gracias. Thank you, El Paso.